It always starts the same. You sit up in bed, feet hovering just above the floor. You wait, not because you want to, but because your body needs a moment. Your heart feels too quick for this early. Your legs feel distant, like they forgot what standing means. And there's that whisper again, don't fall today. You're not lazy. You're not weak. You've lived a life. You've cared for others. But now, just walking to the bathroom feels like crossing a frozen bridge. The worst part? It's not the stiffness, not even the fear. It's that no one warned you this could happen. Not this fast, not this silently. But here's the quiet truth. There are ways to change this. Not with more pills, not with expensive therapy. Just 6 simple movements. Movements that help your legs remember, that steady your heart, that let you breathe again without the room spinning. Just a few simple movements. No prescriptions needed. And mornings feel different again. The Spine Awakener, Jefferson Curl. Tom didn't fall. He simply leaned over to pick up a sock. And suddenly his back locked like a door slammed shut from the inside. Tom is 68, a retired carpenter with strong hands and quiet eyes. For decades he carried beams, climbed ladders, and built homes without ever setting foot in a gym. But that morning, something small snapped. It wasn't just pain. It was the realization that his body no longer trusted him. For weeks afterward, he moved like glass. Slow, careful, afraid. A doctor called it normal stiffness with age. But Tom didn't want normal. He wanted his life back. Then someone told him about a movement that seemed almost wrong, the Jefferson Curl. A stretch where you intentionally round your spine, something Tom had always been told to avoid. He scoffed at first. After all, wasn't the #1 rule of aging to keep your back straight? But here's the quiet truth that most people never hear. The spine wasn't designed to stay stiff. It was built to bend, to move, to flow. And when done gently with care, the Jefferson Curl doesn't harm the back, it restores it. Tom started slowly, just standing tall, tucking his chin and letting his spine roll down one vertebra at a time, holding a light water bottle for balance. He didn't push, he didn't rush, and he didn't expect much. But 2 weeks later, something changed. He dropped his keys, and for the first time in months, he bent down to pick them up, without fear, without pain. And he cried, not because it hurt, but because it didn't. That moment unlocked something deeper. Tom realized his fear had frozen not just his body, but his freedom. All those days holding his breath just to tie his shoes were over. And all it took was a few minutes, a few movements done slowly, done consistently. The Jefferson Curl had become his quiet rebellion, against pain, against decline, against the lie that aging must mean limitation. You don't need a gym, you don't need weights, just a bit of space, a soft breath, and a promise to yourself to try. Because your spine doesn't need protecting, it needs remembering. Let it move again, let it carry you, let it heal. But Tom would soon discover, standing tall is only part of the journey. Because the next challenge wasn't about movement, it was about stillness. And learning how to stay strong, even when everything inside you says sit down. The still strength, wall sit. Linda hadn't done anything that looked like exercise in over a decade. Not since her husband passed. Not since her knees began to ache every time she stood at the sink too long. But one morning, after reading something in the paper, she stood up, walked to the hallway, leaned her back against the wall, and slowly slid down. 20 seconds. That's all she managed before her legs trembled. And still, she smiled. Not because it was easy, but because she felt something again. Not numbness, not stiffness, but a kind of quiet strength she thought she had lost. Wall sits don't look like much. There's no movement, no weights, no equipment. But that stillness, it's powerful. It forces the muscles, especially in the thighs, hips, and glutes, to work together, to hold, to support. And in doing so, it teaches your body that it can stay steady, that it doesn't need to wobble every time you get out of bed. For people like Linda, who used to reach for furniture just to move across the room, this small act became her anchor. What surprised her wasn't just how difficult it was how personal it felt. She remembered the days when she could stand for hours in her garden, pruning roses and humming along with the radio. And she realized something that morning, pressed against the wall with legs shaking. Maybe those days weren't entirely gone. Maybe they were waiting. At first, She could barely last 20 seconds, but a week later she reached 35, then 45. Her breathing became slower, her knees steadier, and her mind quieter. She told herself softly, "Just a few more seconds, you've stood through worse." And she had. The loneliness, the long nights, the hospital visits. This was just training. Wall sits don't just build leg strength, they build trust. Trust in your balance, trust in your core. Trust that if the phone rings across the room, you can go answer it without holding your breath. You don't need a trainer, just a wall, a moment, and the decision to stay. Slide down until your knees are at a 90-degree angle. Keep your back flat, your feet firm. Start with 30 seconds. Rest. Then try again tomorrow. That's it. Linda didn't do it to stay young. She did it because she wanted to rise from the couch without using both hands. Because one day, she hoped to pick up her great-grandchild without worrying if her legs would hold. But she didn't know yet. Her journey wasn't about stillness alone, because strength also means carrying. And the moment she picked up that laundry basket without flinching, she understood what came next. The everyday carry, farmer's walk. Ray had always been the strong one, the kind of man who carried in all the groceries at once just to prove he could. But that was years ago. Now at 75, his hands felt less certain, his shoulders tighter, and when a grocery bag slipped from his grip last month, it wasn't just the thud on the floor that startled him. It was how long he stood there, staring, unsure if he could bend down to lift it again. He didn't tell his daughter. He didn't want her to start bringing meals over, treating him like someone who couldn't manage anymore. But that moment stayed with him. He realized it wasn't the weight that had scared him. It was the weakness. The quiet kind. The kind you don't notice until you need it and it's not there. Then he discovered something surprisingly simple. Not an exercise machine. Not a therapy class. Just walking while holding something. It's called the farmer's walk. You grab two objects, grocery bags, water jugs, small dumbbells, and walk in a straight line, slowly, steadily, with your core engaged and your shoulders pulled back. And it trains everything. Grip strength, posture, heart rhythm, confidence. At first, Ray used 2 half-gallon milk jugs. He walked from one end of the hallway to the other, back straight, eyes forward, hands steady. His palms ached at first, but by the 3rd round, something else kicked in. Something he hadn't felt in a while. Pride. You see, grip strength isn't just about hands, it's connected to the heart. Studies show that people with stronger grips have better cardiovascular health, lower risk of falls, even improved memory. But Ray didn't need a study to tell him that. He could feel it, in his spine, in his breath, in the way his body stopped tensing up with every step. After 2 weeks, he carried a full bag of groceries up the front steps without needing to stop and rest on the railing. His neighbor noticed. "You've still got it," she smiled. He didn't answer. But later, standing in his kitchen with 2 bags in hand, he whispered, "Yeah, maybe I do." You don't need heavy weights to start. You don't even need a gym. 2 bags with books or cans are enough. Focus on walking straight, breathing slow, feeling your feet touch the floor with confidence. 3 sets of short walks. That's it. Over time, your body begins to remember what it means to carry, what it means to hold yourself together. For Ray, it wasn't about building muscle. It was about reclaiming the little things. The mailbox, the laundry basket, the moment when someone says, "Here, let me help," and you can gently reply, "I'm okay, I've got it." But strength isn't just about walking forward. Sometimes it's about shifting sideways without losing your balance. And that's what Diane had to learn, one cautious step at a time. The balance restorer, Cossack squat. Diane never expected the fall. She wasn't rushing. She wasn't careless. She had simply stepped to the side to avoid the vacuum cord in her hallway. But her foot didn't land where she thought it would. Her ankle twisted, her hip gave way, and in 1 second, everything changed. The bruises healed, the limp faded. But what lingered was the hesitation. That split-second pause every time she had to shift sideways. She used to move with such grace, years of dancing in her youth, light on her feet. Now, at 70, she found herself clinging to walls, muttering under her breath, "Don't fall, don't fall." The fear of falling again had shrunk her world. Shorter walks, no more gardening, no more trips to the farmer's market alone. Then, during a community balance class, her instructor introduced something unfamiliar. A wide-legged squat where you shift your weight slowly from one side to the other. It looks strange, difficult, awkward even. They called it the Cossack squat. At first, Diane laughed it off. "That's for athletes," she whispered. But the instructor smiled and said, "It's for anyone who wants to move like life doesn't scare them." And that was all she needed. She started slowly, holding onto the kitchen counter, feet wide, hips back, gently lowering her weight to the left while keeping her right leg stretched, then returning to center, then right. Her knees protested at first, so did her pride. But after a few days, she felt it. The stretch in her inner thighs, the heat in her glutes, the steady burn of forgotten muscles waking up. But something else changed too, something quieter. She stopped whispering, "Don't fall." She started thinking, "I've got this." The Cossack squat is more than a leg exercise. It trains lateral stability, something traditional squats and walking don't touch. It strengthens the hips, knees, and ankles in the directions where most falls happen, sideways and unpredictable. And for older adults, it can cut fall risk by nearly 50%. But Diane didn't need a percentage. She needed to trust the floor again. She practiced 3 times a week, sometimes in the hallway, sometimes in her backyard, holding onto a chair. Her range of motion grew. Her stance widened. One afternoon, she danced again. Just a few small steps to an old Sinatra record, but her hips moved freely, her weight shifted without panic. And when her neighbor clapped from the fence, Diane smiled and gave a little bow. To try it, you don't need to go deep. Start with a wide stance. Hold a counter or chair. Shift to one side slowly, keeping the other leg straight. Go only as far as feels right. Then return to center. Repeat. Over time, your knees, hips, and heart will start to trust you again. For Diane, it wasn't about dancing. It was about crossing a room without fear. But even with balance restored, she still struggled with one thing: lifting, reaching, pulling. Because upper body strength had slowly slipped away. Until Harold showed her how to get it back. The arm reclaimer, pull-up progressions. Harold used to fix everything in the house. Leaky faucet? Done. Loose doorknob? Tightened. Heavy box up on the top shelf? He'd reach and grab it like it was nothing. But lately, even twisting off a jar lid had started to feel uncertain. It wasn't that he couldn't do it. It was that he had to think about it. Pause. Adjust. Grip tighter than he used to. And when his daughter gently said, "Here, Dad, I'll do it," something inside him sagged, quietly. He wasn't looking for muscles. He was looking for control, for the confidence to reach, lift, hold, without feeling like something might pull or slip. And that's when he stumbled across something unexpected. A movement most people associate with the young and strong. The pull-up. But not the kind that requires a full rep on a high bar. No, this was different. This was a pull-up progression. A way back, step by step, for those who had once been strong and could be again. It began with something called the horizontal row. Harold placed a sturdy broomstick across 2 chairs, sat beneath it, knees bent, and pulled his chest up slowly. The first time, he barely moved, but he felt it, in his back, his arms, his chest. Muscles he hadn't spoken to in years said hello. The next week, he added resistance bands to the doorway, using them to mimic the pull. Then one day, he stepped up to a low bar, gripped it, and just held. Chin above the metal, arms trembling, but holding, breathing, owning it. Pull-up progressions don't just build strength, they return dignity. They activate the lats, shoulders, arms, and deep core muscles, the ones that help you sit taller, breathe easier, and carry groceries without pain shooting down your arm. For Harold, they gave him back the simple joy of opening a window without wincing. He practiced 3 times a week. Slowly, carefully, no rush. Just progress. He used a resistance band to take some of his body weight off. He did isometric holds, just staying at the top as long as he could. And over time, his grip became firmer, his posture straighter. One morning, his daughter handed him a stubborn jar again. He opened it in one twist. She smiled. He didn't say anything. But in that silence, he felt 20 years younger. You don't need to do a full pull-up today. You just need to begin. Try horizontal rows under a table. Try assisted holds with bands. Try placing your feet on the ground and pulling gently with control. These small movements bring back the strength to reach, to lift, to move with certainty. Because for Harold, it was never about doing what he did at 40. It was about feeling capable at 70. But upper body strength is only half the story, because the one motion that held it all together began where most people least expect, on the floor, with the most humble movement of all. The foundational force, push-up. Margaret never thought of herself as strong, not in the way people at the gym meant it. She was a retired librarian, quiet, careful, a widow who preferred puzzles to power walks. But strength, as she would come to learn, isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers, "You can do this," as you lower yourself to the floor, arms trembling, unsure if you'll come back up. It started when she dropped a spoon. She knelt to pick it up, but getting back up was another story. Her arms didn't help, her wrists buckled, and she had to crawl to the couch to pull herself upright. It left her shaken, not by pain, but by the realization that something as simple as the floor had become foreign territory. That night, she looked up gentle exercises for arms. What she found was the push-up. Not the military kind, not the clapping kind, just a version that started with her knees on the carpet, hands pressed gently into the floor, and even that felt like too much. But she tried. One, then one more. And over time, she discovered something unexpected. Push-ups weren't just about arms. They woke up her chest, shoulders, triceps, and core. They taught her how to stabilize herself, how to move with control, how to breathe through the tension instead of bracing in fear. At first, Margaret practiced on the kitchen counter, incline push-ups, standing tall. Then she moved to the stairs, then to her knees on the floor. Each step was a small celebration. She didn't care how many reps. She cared that she was no longer afraid to lie down on her back and trust her body to bring her back up. One morning, her neighbor came over with a big bag of oranges. As they chatted in the living room, one rolled under the couch. Without thinking, Margaret dropped to the floor, reached for it, and pushed herself back up, all in one smooth motion. Her neighbor blinked. "Wow, I don't even think I could do that." Margaret smiled. "Neither could I, until recently." Push-ups aren't about proving anything. They're about preparing for everything. The slip in the bathroom, the moment you need to catch yourself, the quiet power to rise when no one's around to help. You don't need to do them on the ground at first. Start with the wall, then the countertop, then your knees. Let your arms remember their purpose. Let your chest open again. Let your body know it can hold you, steady and proud. Margaret didn't do push-ups to become strong. She did them to stay free. But even as she gained strength in her arms and legs, there was something she didn't understand yet. How all 6 of these movements came together to protect something much deeper. Her rhythm, her heart, her life. The real reason these 6 worked together. No one told Linda that skipping breakfast could make her legs go numb. No one told Ray that sitting too long could weaken his heart. No one told Diane that avoiding sideways steps would quietly erase her balance. It all seemed unrelated until the pieces came together. These 6 movements, simple as they are, don't just work muscles. They restore systems. Each one speaks to a different part of the body, and together, they speak to something even deeper, your ability to live without fear. The Jefferson curl re-wakes the spine, sending signals down the nervous system that help restore balance and control. The wall sit builds leg endurance, training the muscles that keep you steady when no one's there to catch you. The farmer's walk reconnects grip to heart rhythm, posture to breath. The Cossack squat reclaims lateral movement, because life doesn't only happen in a straight line. The pull-up progressions remind your arms how to reach, lift, hold. And the push-up, it ties it all together, front and back, top to bottom, strength and softness. You won't find this in a pill. There's no prescription for functional freedom, but your body holds the formula if you give it a chance. Tom didn't know that his spine stiffness was affecting his digestion, but it was. Diane didn't realize that her lack of side-to-side movement was forcing her hips to tighten, throwing off her balance. Ray didn't think grip strength was connected to his heart rate variability. But it was. These movements seem small, but their ripple effect is vast. You don't need to do all 6 every day. Just choose 2. Rotate them. Listen to how your body responds. You might notice fewer leg cramps at night, less dizziness when standing, a quieter heartbeat, a steadier step. These aren't workouts, they're invitations to move, to breathe, to return to yourself. Margaret told her daughter the other day, "I'm not training, I'm remembering." remembering what it felt like to get off the floor without planning, to wake up and not fear the first step, to carry a bag without checking how far the walk was. So yes, the reason these 6 movements matter together is because they don't just treat symptoms, they rebuild trust. In your body, in your rhythm, in your life. And for those who've tried and stumbled, who feel like it might be too late, what happens next is the part no one talks about. Because sometimes the biggest change doesn't happen in the muscles, it happens in the mirror. Tom doesn't reach for the wall anymore when he gets out of bed. His feet still feel a little stiff, but he stands, slowly, steadily. Diane still whispers to herself sometimes when walking across a slippery floor, but the fear is softer now, and her legs answer her voice with strength. Ray carries his groceries again, not all at once like he used to, but with pride, with presence. And Margaret? She recently helped her great-grandson down to the floor to play. And when he ran off, she got up on her own. No one saw it, but she did, and she smiled the rest of the day. This video wasn't about exercises. It was about reclaiming your quiet power. The kind that doesn't show up in mirrors, but in everyday moments. Moments like getting off the floor, turning a doorknob, reaching the top shelf without hesitation. That's what these 6 movements do. They don't promise youth. They protect something even more sacred, your independence. You don't have to do them all at once. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to start. Because consistency, not intensity, is what builds the kind of strength that lasts. And now I'd love to know about you. Type 1 if you've ever sat at the edge of your bed, hesitating before your feet touch the floor. Type 2 if you've ever quietly whispered to yourself, please, not a fall today. Type 3 if you believe that with the right understanding, your body can recover, no medications, no need to be as strong as you once were. I read every comment, because maybe, just maybe, the next story will be yours. You are not alone, and somewhere out there, someone is starting over quietly, just like you. If this felt true to you, I think you'll really appreciate the next video too. It's waiting just below. And if you're not ready yet, that's okay. You can save this video just in case you need it someday. Because one day, your body might ask for it. And this time, you'll be ready.